If we look at the future with AI, AI is looking at being a recommendation engine. So they're going a step further. They're reading every single review.
Please welcome America's service sales coach, Joe Crisara.
Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast, the show that helps home service professionals master high-value sales, build stronger client relationships, and grow their business like never before. Join industry experts as they share real strategies that drive results. If you're ready to level up your service game, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
It's the Service MVP Podcast.
Thank you for listening and watching the Service MVP Podcast. I want to give you a copy of my free book. Just click on the link below in the description and one will be sent to you from me personally. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast, and my name is Joe Crisara, and I have a great friend and somebody I admire greatly is Michael Fox, who is currently working with Corberry Digital. And today's episode is going to be called Making Digital Turn into a Reality, or from digital to reality. How's that sound, Michael? Michael,
That sounds awesome.
Say hi to the rest of our the listeners and viewers here.
Hey, everyone, and thanks for having me on the show.
Well, Michael, let's take a minute because, it's like, I know, why don't you give us a little background as to how you got started? I know you work with one of the companies that we work with in southern Wisconsin, and really kind of a very, legacy type company in the Milwaukee area. And tell us about how you got started in this journey where you are not just doing marketing, but you're turning digital assets and things that are needed in today's world, but turning them into a reality, especially with companies that are more of a legacy company that have kind of older ways of doing things. You have to bring them across the goal line. Tell us how you took this journey and where that started.
Yeah, in terms of, my background obviously was in e-commerce. I think if we look at everything digital marketing, it originates there based on funding. After COVID, that transitioned into local markets as the software became more affordable. And we switched into basically helping local plumbing and HVAC companies. That was my experience, long ago, and that's where we're best suited in the market today.
And then it looks like, based on what I'm seeing over the last 2 years of working with you and working with the company we're talking about, you have noticed that as you're trying to bring modern digital tools and assets to companies to be able to get more clients on the board and create a customer service experience for them, that there are problems that you find. So tell me, like, what's the first time you noticed where it's like, I just can't do marketing on the same thing we're doing. I have to go into the company and actually get them to adopt some changes that'll make it easier for me to do that marketing I'd like to do.
Yeah, I think most people or most contractors, I think they look at like marketing as, hey, just go out and buy traffic, buy me leads. And what they don't understand is really leads or what you spend on something like Facebook or Google is really based on your operations. And if you look at the algorithm, it's a function of price of what you're selling and how well you convert phone calls and estimates and sales. And that average ticket, you need to feed that back in, and that can determine, what you can afford to pay. And I think everybody just looks at Google and says, hey, I want to run LSAs. And if I just buy the top spot, I'll dominate. What they don't realize that $85 a click and up, they may spend a couple $100 before they land a sale. And if they're not converting well, then Google will just look at that and suppress them. So we really look and go, marketing is not a silo. It's not something up front. And it is really dependent on the operation of the business. And if we look in today's world, and I've had a long career as being a marketing officer. And if we look at the role of today's CMOs, or in our case, like a fractional CMO, the definition of that today is the manager of the customer journey. And if you think about it, we're marketing on the front end, but now we're going to take that customer and we have to drag them through an entire contractor's business, meaning the phone room, the website. And then when we go out and call and do an estimate and come into the home, those are all touch points. Each one of those touch points has friction, and our role is to really remove that friction so the operation is running really smooth. Then on the front end, from a digital marketing standpoint, you can go spend, whatever you want because you're going to be able to convert.
Yeah, I guess when it comes down to it, if you look at the operation, there's a lot of people think, hey, we do have a good operation, but the problem is again, there's a different elements or layers of that operation, right? The first there's just client happiness. I mean, it is possible to have somebody who's got a lot of five-star reviews and happy clients, but they're not converting calls, and that also without people paying for the happy experience. Then you're saying it works against you. Tell me how that is determined. How does Google or the other search engines or things like that find out that the conversion rate is a problem, and or is it just there's not enough money because we're not converting to be able to put money into the digital marketing and things like that?
Yeah,
Is that how you're figuring it out?
yeah,
How does that
it
figure it out?
works two ways. I mean, it works. I mean, if you're doing just pure LSAs, the requirement is you have to feed the data back to Google. So we use a couple revenue analytics tools. If we're running on Service Titan, we're pulling that data back into Google. So
Yeah.
Google tracks the phone call, who called, and we're going to look into the CRM and say, did that person, book a job and for how much?
Mm.
And we have to report back the bookings and the job value, and then confirm that the job actually closed. And
Mm.
then at the end of the day, through LSAs, we're running the review. So Google can start to look at that velocity and understand, you know, what's going on in the business. Because at the end of the day, it's really what people don't understand. It's Google's customer. And our role is to get Google to love our business so that it recommends us to Google's customer.
Mm.
And Google's in the experience business. It's going to go with the company, that is providing the best experience to the customer. And it doesn't care. Like a lot of people will give Google a $10,000 budget and they complain, why doesn't it take my money?
Hmm.
It's got 20 other people in that algorithm and it's experience first. So you'll get to that point where you can outbid everybody, but you still have to have a smooth operation. So maybe it's 80% conversion. Obviously, if all your competitors have a much higher closing rate and an average ticket value, yeah, Google's going to go with the group closing at $4,000 versus somebody doing maintenance jobs at 500.
Yeah, I guess there's you right now I think you just gave me or somebody a golden nugget there because I'm sure there's a lot of service contractors that don't realize that that it is connected that tightly. I think they just say, yeah, they just took my money and they don't care. Obviously, they do care. They look into it and say, hey, if you converted. By the way, I think happiness is different than consumer trust, right? I think that
Uh,
because we can all be happy and act like we're happy, like especially in southern Wisconsin, everybody acts like, oh yeah, we're having how's it going today? It's going great. It's like nobody wants to put their bad if they're having a bad day on other people, so they just always say no matter what, it's going great. We call that southern Wisconsin nice or whatever, right? But then there's something that the reality is, yeah, we're not going to get the job done, which is the lack of trust. Even though I like you guys, I'm not going to get the job done. That's like one of the first red flags, I would say, that the operation does need more help. Would you say that's true, Michael? That conversion rate
I would
shows
say
that
that's,
trust. Would you say that's true?
yeah, I would say conversion equals trust.
Yeah. And so what are some of the things that you have done to recommend to some of the companies you worked with that you have to, that's some of the changes that you made. So what can people do? Because I think you're right. The happiness with trust equals high conversion and people purchasing more solutions because they trust that I can give you $30,000 or I can give you 20,000 or 2,000 and you're going to manage this project properly and get the quality I'm asking for. It does take a lot of trust to hand your money over to somebody. And then if you're only hoping it's going to get done, most likely it's not going to get done, right? So this trust is built by people, not digital when you're actually in the home and things like that. What are some of the things that you've done to recommend to customers, that clients that you work with, that increase the level of trust with their consumers to make sure that you do get more conversion and higher average work orders and things like that?
I mean, 100% it's about people in the home. So we kind of view that the technician is the most valuable person in the company. And it's how do we build the assets around that person, and then obviously the call center people, because they are the lifeline. They're the ones, physically talking to that consumer. And how do we arm them with the right tools so that they are providing a great experience in closing. So from our standpoint, it typically will start with the call center. So you may see somebody at a 35% raw booking rate on the phones and look and go, hey, the industry average is 50 and up. If you're in Service Titan, that may be equivalent to 85% with a filtered rate. But we're going to start there and look and go, are we booking the appointment? Are we hiring people that are basically that understand that their role is to book appointments? It's not to answer phones. And so it's a large project, that can involve multiple steps around the call center. But the ultimate goal is how do we get them to convert a 50%, raw booking rate, 85% if it's in, a CRM tool filtered. And then we're going to move on to obviously systems. Do they obviously have a system in place? Like we won't work with somebody if they're not on a House Call Pro, Service Titan, and we're going to push them as a requirement if not. So that's key. We provide a lot of automations. So whether it's AI or just, basic automation, so they have data, because that can help communication internally. And then obviously it's going to go into the tools and estimations and, sales training. So that's where we'll typically bring in an expert if we see, hey, we're just not seeing the right average order. We're seeing jobs, but we're not seeing estimates close. Because what we do is we use a lot of revenue analytics, and we're looking at the data to see, here's all the estimates written, here's all the phone calls coming in, and we're looking at the KPIs to see, do they meet the benchmarks? And if not, we view that to be friction. So on the sales side, we're going to look and go, hey, we've got to bring in a partner like, Service MVP, because we see that we don't have a good price book. We don't have a great sales process. We're not closing on estimates. So it's all about, some things we're going to handle and fix, and then the rest is how do we bring in the right people to help.
Yeah, I think getting traction is important, right? Because you can search for partners in that regard. But I do want to go back to something you said about it really kind of inspired me when you said, like, hey, the technician or the person who goes into the home, installer, technician, salesperson, whoever is in there, is like it's like an athlete on the field of play. Like if you have a football analogy, those are the athletes on the field, right? And sometimes it's like you have organizations that they pride themselves on their operation like so much that it's like you become like the Chicago White Sox of sales or service, where your best thing you have is a campfire milkshake, which is the famous thing that the White Sox, you couldn't name one player, but everybody could know. They understand that the concessions had this milkshake that people were standing in line because the milkshake was so good, and but it didn't fill up the stadium. Does that make sense, sir? It wasn't.
That
It
makes
was
sense.
like so you want to be like the Green Bay Packers, where you're from, which is that the stadium fills up, and the food's not they got brats, and that's probably about it. It's probably the best brats are in the parking lot, not in the stadium, most likely.
Brats and beer.
It's probably outside the stadium, not in the stadium, the best ones.
Yeah.
So it kind of reminds me that a lot of people think the operation is other things. There's also something else we're trying to do rather than trying to get the initial person on the ground to work at the peak, because that's the thing that is being marketed, right? Because tell me how, when you have the operation straight, the phones are being answered properly, and your dispatch is being done, and you're calling customers to say you're going to be on time or you're going to be late or you're going to reschedule, or technicians who make a friend, who diagnose the whole system, who make the options. Once you get that straight, how does that affect your ability to communicate that differentiation with the public? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, there's many ways to do that through the website. I think you'll start to see it in reviews as the reviews gain velocity. That helps you as well. But yeah, there's many ways to communicate that, and obviously, at the end result is you've got happy customers, and all of those steps will play into that, where they then want to refer you, versus the struggle of not being the choice, your third choice, and you're not number one. But I think those things all change when you make those improvements.
From a digital standpoint, does the happy client who shares the story of how the client experience works in a way help you? How does that, what ways can we get the client to express that to the public not just by giving us 5 stars and not making a comment, but is it the comments? Is it a video? What is it that we need in today's world? Do you see moving into the future that that's something, because probably AI will be a great part of finding, companies like the ones you're working for, that they can find the experience as well there too. Tell us about the different tools that you'll have to use, digital tools, to be able to get people to experience this system before they purchase in a way. Is there anything you can tell us there?
Yeah, I think in today's world, I mean, the basics is obviously getting 5-star reviews. So I kind of look at Google today as very static. So it's looking at just review count.
I want everybody to come to the next Total Immersion, the life-changing event where you increase your sales and your personal growth. What should we do?
If we look at the future with AI, AI is looking at being a recommendation engine. So they're going a step further. They're reading every single review and looking for keywords and what people say. So they're looking for customer sentiment and they're pulling that out and trying to summarize it in a paragraph. They may look at like price, your ratings, and then they'll also sum up, here's what current customers are saying. So yeah, they're looking for the specific experience. And then obviously the future will be a lot of testimonials, video, and those are things you should be putting on social. Like a lot of times, social doesn't really generate demand. Like if I'm doing meta ads, you're not going to see customers buying that day because they're not in the market. But what a lot of people are really going to social for is, I came to your website on Google, I was basically retargeted with a pixel, and then when I go back to social, I should be showing testimonials and videos of my work and customer experience, because that is really what, when we talk about social proof, that's what people are doing on social media. They're looking you up and trying to figure out who you are and, how you're going to take care of them.
It's interesting how, when Google a few years back bought YouTube or became part of YouTube, how that's those digital tools there, that kind of it turned into a reality of, let's watch a video, or let's watch it now. They got the short videos, which are like 15 seconds, that go over that kind of a thing. How important is that digital type of tool in the big? It's probably not a direct response, but overall, it does build that trust. Kind of explains the experience more before people purchase. Tell a little bit about that. Is that something that is on the horizon, or something that is already a big reality right now? How does that fit in?
It's a big reality now, and it'll just grow and grow as YouTube, becomes more like with YouTube TV. It's just becoming more and more important. And then obviously Google values YouTube in its own algorithm. So, it's very important to kind of plug that into your website. So testimonials, if you did service or furnace repair, yeah, let's have a furnace repair, testimonial pulled in from YouTube on our furnace repair page. So it's very important that you do that. And the same thing with explainer videos are really good to do. Host them on YouTube and pull them back into your site.
In a way, to an attempt to educate the customer as to the different things you should look for when you're trying to purchase a new heating system or plumbing repair or whatever kind of a thing. How important is it that it's not just client testimonies, but even internal clients, like the people inside the company, appear in that kind of media, or as a testimonial about explaining how the company operates as well there too, about the operation there too? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think it's very important, because like what customers are looking for is who's coming into my house. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, is how do I get the customer to open the door and let my brand in? And your brand is your culture. And at the end of the day, like, it's kind of a joke in the industry, like, they don't want the white rape van showing up, and a customer is very specific. They want to do it in a very quick time. So you're seeing everybody with branded trucks, mascots. It's all about getting into the home, and they want to know in a very quick time, because that's what's changed. They're not doing a lot of research. It's very quick time, mobile phone. Who am I going to let in my home? And they're not as worried about what the cost is, but it's the trust. So when they see the branded vans, they start seeing, what do the technicians look like? Who works at this company? So when you show those things from a video standpoint, you're kind of building that relationship, letting them know your culture, which ultimately is your brand. and who's going to be coming through that door. That's what they want to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I think the thing that since digital marketing came into place and with service, contractors, that I think it has fast forwarded like the get what you pay for
Yeah.
kind of a deal. Makes sense? It's like I think we know if we go too cheap with somebody to market our company, it's probably not going to be. I think we've all done that. We like, hey, this guy's going to do it all for $800 a month. It's like that was a good way to waste like $8,000 this year without getting. But I wasted time too because I didn't get the results. And then you wind up saying, well, then you probably have done the other where you overspent. So how does a contractor know? Is there a good test that you can share that if you were a contractor, what would you tell them that they should look for in a partner to do kind of like what you're doing? What's a good test to make sure that the company they do have now or the ones that they would have and that they're going to take on would be able to pass the test of value in the job you do for them, Michael? What's a good test you could give them or some things, points to look at, to ask questions before you take on a service? Because it is a real disaster when it's, no matter if it's too little or too much, if it doesn't work, it's just
Yeah.
either you spend a lot of money and you quickly fail, or spend no money and you would take a long time to fail. Tell us a little bit about some testing you can do for contractors there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we do with contractors, because we size them up as well to make sure they're a good fit, and really what they should do. I mean, it's a partnership. So what the contractor should be doing is looking for a good partner, and we do the same thing. Like we typically will tell people we want a seat at the table, and all that means is we don't want to be working in a silo. Where a lot of times people will say, "Hey, just go out and get me leads," and you learn it doesn't work that way. Like your marketing company, whatever it is, fractional CMO, they should know your business. And, from our side of the table, typically we'll learn the business and eventually we know it better than the operator. So that means you have to have a good understanding of the operation because I have no idea how a marketing company can come to you and say, hey, I can get you 60 leads a month when they're not involved in your conversion rate, how well the operation works. Because that is predicated on you're an outstanding, contractor with a great operation. So, we really look, for those kind of partnerships, and so should the contractor. Like, who's going to come in and help them and really understand their business so that they can get to the goal that they're looking for. Second, it's really looking at data. So you got to be into the KPIs. So you want to know that when somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to drive volume to your business," you see a lot of people just saying, "Hey, I'm going to get you 60 leads a month." Show me that. I need to see revenue tracking. So we typically won't work with clients who aren't willing to invest in revenue analytics. And those are typically platforms that are going to show we can track all the leads, we can see what they cost per lead, we know the name, the number of the person calling in. And that revenue analytic data is going to pull from, their field management tool like Service Titan, House Call Pro, and we're going to match it up. We can say, hey, look, we're getting a 20x return on the money spent. Now you know where your money's going. Because I think what I hear too many times is, hey, I'm paying $2,000 a month. I'm not sure what I'm getting. And yeah, you're not partnered, when you look at those relationships, and
Yeah,
you don't know what you're getting.
yeah, exactly. It's like, so in a way, you're saying to me that when you have a good marketing partner, a partner who is more of a consultative marketing partner who looks at the operation and makes suggestions for improvements to be able to make the marketing more effective, that's somebody right at the bat, somebody who's not just accepting what you have, somebody who's requesting change to get better so that it's easier to market. That's one, I'd say. Number two, should it be the contractor's job to come to the marketing company and say, hey, your marketing's not working? Or should it be the marketing company to say, hey, let's go over the results. I see some challenges. Like, what's the dynamic there? You're paying a marketing company or a company that does this. Should you have to go to them and tell them your stuff's not working, or should the marketing company be approaching the contractor on a regular basis? Tell us about that as a communication, tech. What the communication style should be there.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a combination of both. I mean, the marketing company should be coming with data, should be asking questions. So you shouldn't just be accepting results. And a marketing company shouldn't just provide them and kind of drop it off. There should be recommendations like, hey,
That's what I'm saying. That's a good test, right? Does your marketing company
yeah,
just tell you the results and say, "Hey, yeah, here's this, yeah, here's the results." Yeah, so that's it for this meeting.
because like, I mean, it's just the way things work. It's why I think 85% of all contractors are failing. And you only see the market leaders actually practicing this. And it's because everybody just accepts, the results. And if you look at it from the 85% that don't scale, they're spending money, they're not involved. So yeah, the owner needs to be involved and the owner needs to be sharing data and the results. Because a lot of times if you're just spending a little bit of money, you're usually doing it blind because you're just not invested enough, to invest in the software to track all this data. And, if marketing companies are really good at they know how to buy ads on Google, they know how to buy ads on Facebook. The majority of them don't know how to make money, meaning they just look in and go, hey, I got you traffic, but you spent a lot and you may be overspending because your conversion is too low and you're just paying too high of a CPA. And if you should be bidding down, you don't deserve to be trying to compete against the market leaders who are well optimized. They can afford to outspend everybody else because they're that well optimized. They're making far more money, far more profit, and much higher average tickets. And they can afford to be at the top. And that's kind of the goal. If you look at direct marketing, it's always about the person who will win is the person that can afford to pay the most. That doesn't mean you're overspending and just outpaying. You can afford to be there because you've got a $4,000 average ticket. You're closing 90% of the leads, 70% of the estimates. You're making money hand over fist that, being at the top, you can afford to be there.
Well, Michael, I always say a good podcast starts on time and a great one ends on time. I think we went a little overtime here, but that's okay. Definitely. One question I did have though, because you work, I see how hard you work for the company that I'm working with you, and how hard you put into our stuff as well as your marketing and the rest of it. I mean, when you think about how much money that comes in, how much do you get paid? If you take all the hours you put in divided by the money you make, how much do you make per hour overall? Which is a it's
A
like
couple
$3.
$100 an hour, but at the end of the day, it's
I mean,
not
honestly, if you think
about
about the
what
hours, because you're putting hours in when you're not even working, though,
yeah.
you're still thinking about it. I think you're probably making about $3 an hour. That's what I come up with you, because I mean, you put so much time into this, and you're thinking about it. There's a lot of times that we just talk that you're not getting directly paid for. That's just time you're talking and thinking about this stuff, because there's a time that's working and the time that's strategizing and things like that. I think.
Yeah.
My analysis is that you are amazing value and that you give so much to your clients. So I highly recommend that if you want somebody who's a hardworking company that will they'll think about you beyond the work they do with the digital aspect, Michael is a great solution for that. Michael, how does somebody are you still taking clients? Do you have enough bandwidth to
Yeah, we
take
still
clients?
take clients. Yeah, I mean, we're not looking for 1,000 clients. We're really looking for a smaller group that we just go deeper in. So we
Yeah.
truly become partnered with them to scale them.
How does somebody get a hold of you, Michael? What's a good way to get a hold in touch with you?
They can basically land on our website and book a call,
And that website is?
Corberry.com,
There you
and
go.
then just click the book a call button.
Corberry.com. Thank you, Michael, for being here. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one, everybody. And we'll see everybody on the next episode of the Service MVP podcast.